to order. This is the 24th regular meeting of the 2009-2010 Common Council, and as is customary, our city clerk, Sue Richards, will read the quote of the evening.
Thank you, Mayor. The game of life is the game of boomerangs. Our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy.
Thank you, Sue. Roll call, please.
Boren. Here. Bauk. Here. Bowers. Here. Decker. Here. Gisha. Here. Hannah. Here. Heidemann. Here. Koth. Here. Kittleson. Here. Clayunas. Here. Montemayor. Here. Rindfleisch. Here. Surek. Here. Vanderweel.
Excused.
Vu. Here. And Wangaman. Here. 15 present.
We have a quorum. Now, if Alderperson Koth can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. For confirmation of the mayor's appointments, Attorney McLean.
Approve the minutes first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Why don't we first approve the minutes of the prior meeting?
Approve the minutes. Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes of the prior Common Council meeting. Under discussion. If there is none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, Attorney McLean.
Thank you, Mayor. Hereby submit the following appointment for your consideration. Marjorie Mattern to be considered for appointment to the Housing Authority to fill the unexpired term of Perry Brugink, whose term expires 4/30/2014. Signed by the mayor.
Motion to approve the appointment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the appointment. Under discussion. If there is none, roll call, please.
Boren. Aye. Bauk. Aye. Bowers. Aye. Decker. Aye. Gisha. Aye. Hannah. Aye. Heidemann. Aye. Koth. Kittleson. Aye. Clayunas. Aye. Montemayor. Aye. Rindfleisch. Aye. Surek. Aye. Vu. Aye. And Wangaman. Aye. 15 ayes.
Motion carries. Public forum this evening.
Okay. This evening we have 3 people speaking. First on the list would be Wendy Schmitz. And Wendy, if you want to pull the mic down to you so everybody can hear you. And if you could give us your address, why don't you give the Senior Center?
428 Wisconsin Avenue, Sheboygan.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. It is with great pleasure that I bring you a report from the Senior Activity Center. You have a copy in front of you, so I will talk about some highlights. In March of 2009, the Friends Group hired a consulting firm to conduct stakeholder interviews and community surveys to determine what this community wanted from their senior center. 4 key themes were identified: to expand hours of operation and range of programming to interest a wider group of users, to improve the look and feel of the center and enhance its image, take away that institutional feel, raise public awareness and create more accurate and positive perceptions of the center, and address transportation and access issues. In response, we expanded our hours to include Thursday evenings and added a greater variety of programs using volunteer program leaders. We've added mahjong, knitting, digital camera class, Facebook, peer connecting, and genealogy scrapbooking classes, and silk scarf painting, all taught by senior leaders. At the same time, my part-time staff responded by adding new fitness opportunities, arts classes, and trips. 10 people visited China last year, and we were the first senior group to take a painting and photography trip to the Walking Box Ranch in the Mojave Desert. In a couple of months, an arts group will be traveling to Key Largo. With funds from the Friends organization, our senior volunteers have transformed a typical school lunchroom into an attractive recreation room, which is used all day long and has brought many new people to our building. In a tough economy, as the city started to tighten its belt, the senior participants decided to initiate a voluntary activity fee, including a Friends membership. The sense of ownership and empowerment increased dramatically. We now have 654 members, and committees are busily determining what renovation projects to tackle next. There is a growing sense of pride in their senior center. There's also a great deal of risk that I'm not the boss anymore. I am privileged to manage a unique, active center, dedicated staff, and enthusiastic, energetic volunteers wanting to change the image of Sheboyganites over 55. We saved a lot of money by switching from printing our own newsletters to getting them free by using paid advertising. We're proud to recycle and switch off lights and computers, something we've been doing for a couple of years, and last year installed energy-saving lighting in the large game room. We've worked hard to change the community's perception of our image. We have a website, a Facebook page. I'm not quite sure how to use that yet. And today I was informed that our TV show has another merit award. Our participation in the Dance Exchange at the Arts Center was covered in the press this week. We're providing volunteers for the Walking Bus Project, and I think I'm the only senior center supervisor who can offer you an invitation to come skydiving with us on July 17th, led by an 83-year-old volunteer. You have a center and a group of seniors who give the city a big bang for your buck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
Could Wendy come back up?
Wendy, Alderman Hanna has a question for you if you'd like to come back up.
Is he serious?
Alderman Hanna has a question or a statement here he'd like to.
Just one question, Wendy. What would it cost to have Alderman Gisha be part of that skydiving?
$170.
We can do that. We can do that tonight.
The price varies whether he has a parachute or not.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Hanna. Next on public forum.
Dulcie, you may get the same, I don't know. Dulcie, can I have your home address, please?
1306 North 3rd Street, Sheboygan.
And you will have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Okay. Mayor Ryan, City Clerk, City Attorney, members of the Council, and citizens. During the past several weeks, there has been reference to a $700,000 hole that would exist in the city budget if the city got out of the ambulance business, resulting in the need to lay off up to 12 employees. I would like to address the $700,000 hole this evening. The city's fiscal year is the calendar year, and expenses and revenues are accounted for on that basis. The 2008 year-end financial report from the Finance Department for the ambulance service shows a marginal profit of $406,188. The report for the first 6 months of 2009 showed a marginal profit of $17,805. When that report was issued, it was stated at a Finance Committee meeting that runs and collections were down for the first 6 months of 2009. It should also be noted that the budgeted amount for salaries alone in 2009 is $73,966 more than was expended in 2008. The final report for 2009 is not available, but the report for the third quarter shows a marginal profit of $197,081. So let us estimate a marginal profit of $300,000 for 2009. Now Chief Herman is asking that the hiring freeze be lifted so that he can hire 3 more firefighter paramedics to maintain the ambulance service and provide transports to Milwaukee, Green Bay, and Fond du Lac. He has stated that he does not need these 3 new hires for firefighting services. At the Finance Committee meeting, the Finance Director stated that the new hires would be expensed to the ambulance service, as was the case with the 4 new hires when the Fire Department took over the ambulance service. The cost of the new hires is stated to be $60,000 each, though the actual cost of the 4 firefighter paramedics, including overtime for 2008, was $72,736 per hire, and the budgeted cost of salaries, benefits, overtime, and bonuses for 2009 is $88,308 per hire. So let us assume a cost of $75,000 for the new hires. The new hires would not be on the payroll until April. And using the $75,000 figure would result in additional salaries and benefits for 2010 of $168,750. This would mean that a marginal profit of $300,000 would be reduced to $131,250. As we all know, this does not include salaries, benefits, and overtime for the additional personnel needed to operate the ambulance system, and no administrative costs, though Deputy Chief Butler estimates that 60% of his time is spent on ambulance-related work. Further, per Alderman Bourne's information at a recent committee meeting, Medicare reimbursements for 2010 have been reduced by 2%, further eroding the marginal profit. So what happens in 2011? At the Finance Committee meeting, it was stated that things are going to be worse in 2011, which I interpret to mean that wages and benefits, which were lowered because of concessions in 2010, will increase significantly in 2011, making the salaries and benefits for firefighter paramedics higher in 2011. 3 of the additional firefighter paramedics that you will be voting on tonight will be a 12-month expense to the ambulance service in the amount of at least $225,000. And the projected marginal profit would be reduced to $75,000. The estimated marginal profit for the ambulance service for 2011 with the requested 3 new hires would be $75,000, which might be the cost of 1 firefighter paramedic. And if the replacement for the retiring firefighter who will be hired as a firefighter paramedic is assigned to regular ambulance service, the marginal profit would be 0. Obviously, the ambulance service is not the big moneymaker that has been argued by some, even using the marginal profit analysis. Per an email to me from Chief Herman on February 1st regarding staffing needs, I quote, "If we were not providing the ambulance service, we would only need to hire 2. If we replaced an engine in the rescue squad with a rescue pumper and did not provide ambulance service, we would not need to hire any. The council has already approved the purchase of the rescue pumper. Let that be the answer to the fire department's request. Deny the request tonight for the additional 3 firefighter paramedics and get out of the ambulance business. We do not need to pay salaries, benefits, overtime, and retirement pay for 20 to 30 years for a rescue pumper. The only ongoing cost is the maintenance and fuel." I ask you to consider the following questions. Is it really government's role to do a job that is being done well by the private sector? Is it government's role to eliminate private sector jobs in order to create government jobs? Are taxpayer jobs more valuable than private sector jobs?
Excuse me, Dulcie, would you like the extra minute?
Please.
Motion to approve the extra minute.
Go ahead.
Is it necessary for the city to be in the ambulance business? Is the private sector able to provide ambulance services? Now ask yourself, why is the city in the ambulance business? Putting a private enterprise out of business is contrary to everything that this country was founded on. Government should only be doing what the private sector cannot do. The 3 new hires you will be voting on tonight will only add to government's incursion into private sector business at taxpayers' expense, and I urge you to deny the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Dulcie.
Thank you, Dulcie. Next.
Last on our list is Kristen Blanchard. Kristen, you're going to have to pull that down a little. Very good. Can I have your home address, please?
Yes, 1012 North 27th Street.
North 27th?
Correct.
And you will have 5 minutes.
Wonderful. Good evening. I'm Kristen Blanchard, the Executive Director of Sheboygan County Interfaith Organization, and I'm here tonight to discuss the Farmers Market in Fountain Park and the operation of a popcorn stand, which was approved by the Department of Public Works and will be voted on tonight, which is document 2411. The goal of our farmers market is to make available fresh, native products directly from farmers to residents. By working to help local farmers remain vibrant, educate the community on healthy eating, and provide a social experience that helps build community. In 2009, the Sheboygan Farmers Market served a daily average of 1,200 customers with 52 vendors. As a certified farmers market, we are able to provide the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, serving 302 low-income seniors, providing them with $7,550, in which we had a reimbursement rate last year of 87%. Public Health, through WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, were able to serve 8,826 women with vouchers in the amount of $22,000 with a reimbursement rate of 64%. These services can only be provided in a certified farmers market. By allowing the popcorn vendor space within our market, this city risks the loss of our certification and therefore risks the loss of serving those in our community who are low income and are in need of healthy, fresh food. We are not asking you to ban the popcorn vendor from Fountain Park. We are only asking that the vendor be asked to set up outside of our market in which customers can make the distinction between the farmer's market and this outside vendor on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Currently, you have the popcorn vendor set up in our vendor spot 64, as seen on the map provided. It's in the corner. We would appreciate you to reconsider the location of the popcorn vendor, as you have been supportive of our farmers market in the past and understand the value of this market in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. Alderman Hannah has a question.
Uh-oh. You're skydiving.
Not skydiving.
No. If we approve, no. My question is, so if we move the popcorn stand from one of your traditional vendor locations, then you will not risk loss of certification?
Correct. If it's anywhere, our market right now is on Erie and 8th Street, utilizing the center of the park, that main fare through. But, you know, if that popcorn stand could be somewhere else within the park, not in those areas, we currently don't have a problem with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. If you could hold on just a moment, please. We have Alderman Boren.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. If I missed it during your presentation, would you go over it again? What would jeopardize your certification? I don't understand it.
To jeopardize our certification is because it's not a local food that's being provided. Farmers markets are fresh local food. Our farmers market, in which we give our rules to the state, really says that you have to have food within a 50-mile radius of the city of Sheboygan, which makes our market, again, a local farm fresh market.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Boren. Next is Alderman Bowers. Looks like you stirred something up here.
I guess so. Sorry.
Thank you. Could you tell me where this 64 is? I'm looking for it.
Sure, yep. It's going to be, I'll have everybody else show you.
When does it come up?
Oh.
We're just gonna hold.
Oh, okay. All right.
I gotta find it.
Yeah, that's where it used to be years ago. All right, now,
I would send this back to Public Works.
were you aware of this beforehand, or, we've already approved it, so now what do we do? Go back and tell the gentleman that he can't do this? Or
I did just learn about this.
you just found out?
Correct.
If I can have everybody's attention, please. This is document number 2411 on the consent agenda. I would like a motion to have this referred back to Public Works, the Public Works Committee on the consent agenda when it comes forward. We will do that when we bring the consent agenda forward. So if we can.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill? Can we?
I don't think we should.
Bill, can we just hold off until we bring this on the consent agenda? Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Mayor's announcements. First of all, I'd like to announce that we will discuss the popcorn here further in the near future. Other than that, a very important day coming up. This is our last council meeting before the April 6th vote. There will not be a council meeting on Monday the 5th. There will be no council meeting The next council meeting will be April 7th, which is the day after the election. As I've said before, government starts at home. Local elections set the stage for everything else that happens in this country. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you don't vote, I don't think you have the right to complain. So please get out and vote. Elect the people that you feel are fit, or at least nearly fit, to run this city. Other than that, this Wednesday is St. Patrick's Day. I myself do not go out and celebrate St. Patrick's Day any longer. However, on Sunday is St. Baldrick's Day, another holiday named after St. Patrick, but it's named after the patron saint of baldness, St. Baldrick. It's a fundraiser. Will be held at Urbane. Basically, it is to raise funds for childhood cancer research. My goal was to raise $10,000. I am sorry to say I haven't reached that as of yet. But if anybody would like to show up and watch me lose my hair, I might even let the beard go for a price. You're all welcome to come and watch that. That will be on Sunday, the 21st, this coming Sunday at Urbane. I don't know the exact time that I'll be on, but that'll let you hang around and support the cause. So my team is called Anna's Rainbow, which is a team sponsored by Anna Tarnowski, who goes to Holy Family School and has been fighting a rare form of cancer for the last 2 years. So that's a good cause. Those are my only announcements for today. President Gisha.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to accept and file all reports of officers, accept and adopt all reports of committees, and pass all resolutions and ordinances.
Second. We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda, 24-1 through 2419. I am looking for in there a motion on 2411, if we can have that referred back to Public Works.
I make that motion to refer that document back to Public Works.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Alderperson Kittleson and Alderman Hanna to send 2411 back to Public Works. Anybody opposed to sending that back to Public Works? If we'd like to open the floor to Bill Bittner, please. He'd like to comment on that. 2411.
I just wanted to make a clarification. There's no problem sending the issue back to Public Works, but in accordance with the city statutes, that permit has been issued. In other words, the city statutes authorize the Public Works Department to issue that permit, and that's been done after consultation with the Public Works Committee. So this was to file and move the discussion along. We'll continue that discussion, but just so the council's aware that permit for vending in the park has been issued.
So the permit's been issued, but the discussion at Public Works will regard placement of the vendor. Okay. All in favor of sending 2411 back to Public Works, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 2411 goes back to Public Works. Now we have a motion and a second on the consent agenda, 24-1 through 2410 and 2412 through 2419. Under discussion. Alderman Bowers?
Thank you. I'm not opposed to any of these, but 24-5 through 24-8, I guess I'm concerned with the wording. I've never seen the police powers before, so if someone could probably just clue me in why it was worded this way, that's the only question I have.
Thank you, Alderman Bowers. Attorney McLean, if you can answer that question, please.
Yes, Alderman Bowers, there's two methods to levy special assessments. One is the taxing power, one is the police power. Typically, city assessment ordinances all use exercise of the police power. It's provided for in statute. It's just the method that everyone uses for special assessments.
Satisfy your question? Yes. Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? If there is none, roll call, please.
Bauk? Bowers? Decker? Gisha? Hanna? Heidemann? Koth? Kittleson? Clayunas? Montemayor? Rindfleisch? Surrick? Vu? Wangerman? And Boren. 15 ayes.
Motion carries. Communications and petitions. 24-20 is withdrawn. 24-21 through 24-23 to be referred. Reports of officers 2. 24-24 through 24-44 to be referred. That's a big chunk. Resolutions introduced 3, 24-45 by Alderman Gisha, directing that from this point forward, all resolutions and/or ordinances introduced to the city clerk for publication, inclusion, or action that requires the expenditure of funds or expansion of work-related time must include the attached fiscal information form, also known as the FIFE. President Gisha.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that the resolution be put upon its passage.
We have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Alderman Hanna.
Thank you, Your Honorable Mayor. Although I regret having to do this, I do have to compliment Alderman Gisha. This is long overdue. It has always been a cumbersome process. When we get a document, we don't know where the funding is. We don't know whether it's in the budget or not. This just streamlines it for everybody. The person that is bringing it forward is responsible to make sure everything is checked off. Long overdue. Great idea.
Thank you, Alderman Hanna. Any further discussion? If there is none, roll call, please.
Bowers?
Aye.
Decker? Gisha? Hanna? Heidemann? Koth? Kittleson? Clayunas? Montemayor? Rindfleisch? Surk? Vu? Wangerman? Boren? And Bauk. 15 ayes.
Motion carries. 24-46 through 24-48 to be referred. Also make a note, 24-47 will be going to Public Protection and Safety and Finance. 24-47. Report of Committee 6, 24-49 by Law and Licensing, recommending denying beverage operators license number 8503 based upon her failure to include all relevant convictions on the application and her failure to cooperate with the committee. Alderman Boren.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. I move that the report of committee be accepted and adopted.
Second.
Motion and a second. Under discussion.
Under discussion, Mayor, is Rosabella Perez here tonight? She's not here, Mayor.
Please continue.
As you stated, Ms. Perez did not cooperate with the committee. She had 2 opportunities to appear, and she did not, so we voted unanimously not to grant the license.
Thank you, Alderman Boren. Any further discussion? If there is none, roll call, please.
Decker? Gisha? Hanna? Heidemann? Koth? Kittleson? Clayunas? Montemayor? Rindfleisch? Surk? Vu? Wangerman? Boren? Bauk? And Bowers. 15 ayes.
Motion carries. Report of Committee 8, 24-50 by Public Protection and Safety, recommending lifting the hiring freeze in order to hire 4 firefighter paramedics in the Sheboygan Fire Department and recommend leaving station number 5 open. Public Protection and Safety, Alderman Hanna.
I would make a motion that the report of committee be accepted and the substitute resolution be put upon its passage.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Alderman Bowers.
Thank you, Mayor. I have many questions here, and I brought them up before, but I'd just like to reiterate some of the information that's been passed on to me by some of my constituents. They've done some checking. There are other fire departments where I'd just like to bring up, La Crosse is considering going volunteer, replacing full-time firefighters with volunteers. Now, has it passed? No. Will it pass this year? Probably not. Will it in the future? Probably, but it takes time. Therefore, what we have is other departments that have, in other cities, in other states, that have used firemen. They have firemen that their population is much greater than ours. We have one here that's 140 volunteer firemen. They're 4 minutes response time. And this department is in Minnesota, Eden Prairie. But we also have a couple of questions I'd like to ask the chief, if the chief is here.
If you can hold on a moment, Alderman Bowers, we'll have the chief come up.
All right. Also, Dearborn Heights, Michigan, population of 58,000, 2 fire stations, 53 personnel. Dearborn, Michigan, 97,000, 4 fire station, 121 personnel. The Eden Prairie, I think I brought that up. There are 95 unpaid, 9 paid, population 61,000. I guess the question I have for the chief is, why do we have to utilize, or why aren't we utilizing our personnel better? These other departments are doing it. And of course, you can't, you don't know what the other departments are doing. So anyway, is there any way that we could utilize our people right now? I guess the question I have, you say that people are going on vacation. How many people, firemen, go on vacation at one time? Will you limit them to one per shift, or what's the procedure?
By union contract, that's limited to 4.
By the contract?
Correct.
4 can be on leave of absence or vacations at one time?
Correct.
And this is negotiated?
Correct.
Okay. Now, is it also negotiated in your contract that fire personnel can belong to another fire department?
That is not negotiated.
That's not negotiated? And it's not in your...
Not in our union contract, it is not.
Not in your union contract. Would you approve if we had firemen operating in other fire departments? Would you okay that?
It's not up to me to okay it. Would I approve of it? No.
Are you aware of any that are now currently members of other fire departments?
I am not aware of what their status is with other departments.
Some are very close here, Elkhart Lake, Plymouth, Random Lake.
That may be possible.
Okay. Do you happen to know if we have any firemen, how far away they live? I've heard that there's one in Cedarburg. I haven't been able to confirm that. Are you aware of that?
That's correct. In mid-'80s or so, the council got rid of residency.
But
currently, our new hires are required to live within the city for their first 5 years.
So this gentleman has been on the force, but what I'm pointing out is in case of a serious fire like we had here at Slides.
Alderman Bowers, if I may ask, where are you going with this?
Where am I going?
Yes.
Well, I'm going because I'm opposed to hiring 4 firemen, and if we have firemen that are 50 miles away, how can they come and help put out a fire?
Generally, this would be committee issues and not done on the council floor. If you're talking about residency or this is generally something that would be done at committee level and not on the council floor. If you're now, we're not speaking of residency here this evening or how far people live away.
Well, if they can't answer the fire call, what good are they?
What I'm saying is you're not going to accomplish anything on the floor here tonight regarding these issues because they're not part of what we're discussing here this evening, Alderman Bowers.
So in other words, you want me to sit down?
You said you had some questions for the chief. Is this regarding the 4 individuals on the hiring freeze? Is this regarding the closing of the fire station? Or is this regarding residency, which is not part of the issue right now?
Well, I think it is, but anyway, that's up to this council to decide. But anyway, so we hired the 4 firemen. Would it be willing to say that if we didn't hire them and did away with the ambulance service, we would have enough personnel?
I would say that's incorrect, because if you go back to 2007, prior to us taking over the ambulance service, we had 73 members on our fire department. We currently have 70, going down to 69 with a retirement in May. So by hiring the 4 people brings us back to the level that we were pre-ambulance. After taking over the ambulance, we added 4 people and went to 77 people. So if you'd like to bring us back to the pre-ambulance level, you still need to hire 4.
Well, could there be some rescheduling done so that perhaps adjustments could be made, because other communities seem to have made these adjustments? And as one fire chief said, maybe you should take a look at reorganizing that department.
And we have done that. The
Okay.
rescue pumper was the first step in that process.
Okay.
We've eliminated positions. I've cut the salaries of 26% of our department, or eliminated those positions.
Yeah.
There are no other areas to go.
All right.
The next cut is a fire station, which you are discussing tonight.
I believe tonight we're voting on keeping open all the fire stations.
Correct.
So if we vote on this tonight and we, let's say, by turn down, then what's the next step as far as, would you close a fire station then?
On April 19th, that station will be closed.
And what station would that be?
At this point, it is targeted to be Station 5. When doing statistical analysis of all 5 stations, Station 1 showed the greatest risk at closing that station.
Right.
It's very close between Station 4 and 5. And I believe in committee meeting, 3 of the 4 aldermen that represent that district did say that they were in favor of that. And that is the station that I am proposing to close.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bowers. Alderman Hanna?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I just question, do you need council authority to close a station? Or can you do that on your own?
I would say that I answer to the mayor, but I cannot keep stations open without putting people in them.
Right.
I guess the station can stay open, there just won't be anybody
It's
in
my,
that station.
it's my understanding that it's at the fire chief's discretion.
It's at the fire chief's discretion, it's at the council's discretion as to how you fund the department to keep that open.
And my follow-up question, I hear a lot of people talking about, what about bringing in volunteer firefighters? Does our current contract allow for volunteer firefighters to work with our full-time professional firefighters?
It does not.
Okay. So that's a contractual negotiated item?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hanna. Alderman Bourne.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. At the last council meeting, Chief, I asked you specifically, the scenario is if we lease the pumper and we got out of the ambulance business, you reassigned those 4 paramedics as firefighters, could we keep all of the stations open, and would you need any further personnel? And you said we would not need any further personnel. Now tonight, you're saying that even if we got out of the ambulance business and you reassigned those paramedics to the other stations, you would also, you would need new hires, and I have, go ahead with that one first.
The question was, what would we get back to that level pre-ambulance, and that is the level of 73 firefighters. You'd need an additional funding mechanism to keep that station open, and one of the biggest issues is with only 4 stations, my overtime goes down because I have much more flexibility with my staffing. With 5 stations open and we're spread so thin, my overtime goes up. So there is an additional amount needed.
So how many more would you need under that scenario that I just mentioned? You reassign the 4, we're leasing the pumper, how many more would you need?
I would need the 4 that are on the table tonight to hire to keep that station open.
And then also another question I have, your table of organization pre-ambulance, you mentioned a specific number, 73. In the meantime, have you lost any management people who wouldn't really count as far as having people on the street, you might say?
That'd be correct. This year we deleted 1, so that 73 number would come down to 72.
Okay, so then you would need an additional 3.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Boren. Next we have President Gisha.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a few questions, Chief, if I could. I think we went over some numbers in one of the meetings, and I recall Sheboygan being the lowest per capita spending of any city in the state of Wisconsin on fire protection.
I think we're not the lowest, we're in the bottom 10%.
Yeah, so if you look at the big long list,
Right.
we're somewhere. I recall you being challenged in this council's budget resolution to reduce the 2010 budget by 3%. Can you tell me the reduction that you responded to with that request for 3% reduction?
That's over 8%.
You've reduced your budget for 8%. We asked for 3, you gave 8, even with these hires, correct?
If we bring these hires back on, that reduction will go down a little bit.
Yeah, but it still would be well above 3, obviously. You were asked for reorganization in the council budget resolution that this council voted unanimously on. And your efforts in that area have led to, if you could describe the reorganization again briefly, reductions in certain areas of staff and so forth.
The staff was cut by 25% at a savings of roughly $110,000. Salaries were cut in all the staff positions. And then the rescue pumper proposal was put forth that will save the city money in years to come.
So just to kind of recap, you were asked for 3, you're well above 3. At the moment you're at 8, but it'll probably level out somewhere at 5 if this resolution passes. You were asked to reorganize, you've cut double-digit, or you've reorganized and reduced management structure by in the mid-20s% range. You should be commended for that and not berated, as I've heard, not necessarily in this room at this moment. I'm talking about over time here. That's management. That's solid, good management. Because the council unanimously asked you to do those things, and you delivered more. And that's much appreciated. Does it kind of come down to, Chief, that if we vote these down tonight, that you can have all the new pumper trucks you want. If you don't have anybody to sit in them and drive them, it doesn't mean anything. We can't keep all 5 stations open, correct?
That's correct.
Kind of that simple, isn't it? The firefighters also, during their union contract, part of this funding mechanism was a goodwill attempt by them. I believe they gave back a percentage of their wage.
They gave back 2%, and I did not include that in the 8% reduction. That's above and beyond.
Because it is a one-year reduction, so that's fair that you didn't include it. If you did probably include it, you probably would see, well, probably because most of it's manpower, about another 2% on top of that. So I want to commend you for this. I personally feel it's time to look at our 5-station structure. I understand the factors that go along with this. I will vote for this tonight because you guys have done more than we've asked you to. You've reorganized more, you've cut the budget more, you've structured yourself more, you're delivering profits on the ambulance regardless of what fantasy numbers are thrown around. And I, for one, just want to say I appreciate it and wish to support the hiring of 4. Thank you.
Thank you, President Gisha. Next we have, for the second time, Alderman Bowers.
You see me gather my thoughts. Chief Herman, I'm not addressing this to you. I'm addressing this to the council. Whatever action we take tonight, if we pass this resolution or ordinance, this will have lasting effects on the city of Sheboygan for at least the next 2 years and probably further. This coming year, 2011, we all know this, we're going to get less money than we had this year. Does this mean that we cut public works again? Does this mean that we cut building inspection again? I think these people have taken the brunt. So whatever you vote on tonight, remember, it's going to have a lasting effect on the city of Sheboygan for the next at least 2 years and maybe longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bowers. Vice President Heidemann.
Thank you, Mayor. By passing this resolution tonight, you're guaranteeing me that Station 5 will stay open.
No.
Okay, because there was an amendment at Public Protection and Safety. When they brought this forward, they were going to leave Station 5 open.
That's correct, but the funding that I'm using to fund the 3 of the 4 replacement hires is coming out of savings from closing Station 5, or one of these stations.
Okay, I was one of the aldermen that raised his hand to close the station. I regret doing that. I think one of the most important parts of our responsibilities as aldermen is provide garbage pickup, street plowing, and protection. This does not protect my constituents by closing Station 5. I would rather see something on the board saying that we're going to keep all these stations open as opposed to closing one, and that's what I thought we had when we sent this back to Public Protection and Safety.
Yeah. Sue Richards, our city clerk, would like to speak for a moment.
Just to clarify for you, Alderman Heidemann, it did come back from Public Protection and Safety with a recommendation to do the 4 hires, and they wanted to leave Station 5 open, which is on the top document. However, what's being looked at passing tonight is the substitute resolution, which in the second be it further resolved says it says to close Station 5. So if that substitute resolution passes, it closes. You would have to amend that in order to make the public protection recommendation come forward. That's where we're kind of in a little bit of a, do you understand what I'm saying? Okay.
If I can just interject here for a moment, I think what we need to look at and what we have been forced to base our decisions on in this council over the last couple of years and definitely for several years in the future is the economics of our actions. And part of these economics tonight are by lifting this hiring freeze is not paying unnecessary overtime. By closing a station, we can better manage with the people that we have. It's all based on economics. And the chief's recommendations, which I think we need to listen to, and possibly also to Terry Hansen, our finance director, and what these decisions mean to the bottom line. You know, it's thrown out here, let's get rid of the ambulance. What does that mean? You know, what does it mean closing a fire station? What does it mean hiring these people? What does it mean if we do nothing at all? What does it result in? And that's what our decisions should be based on, is how do you best serve the public with the funds that we have available? You know, we cannot afford to let politics get in the way of sound economic thinking because it's only going to result in other people getting their jobs eliminated. And truthfully, we're done picking on Public Works. Public Works has lost too many people to start with. If you folks make these decisions and it comes back in the fire department that we're leaving all 5 stations open, we're getting rid of the ambulance service, and we end up with $1 million hole somewhere, we're going to go down to 3 fire stations is what's going to happen. That's the economics of it. So keep that in mind as we're voting this evening. Alderman Bourne.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. I'm not going to be supporting this tonight. I may ultimately end up supporting it. However, I asked Director Hansen last week in your office to come up with exactly the numbers you're talking about tonight. What is exactly this is going to mean? If we go out of the ambulance business, if we hire or we don't hire these people, what kind of a budget hole is it going to have next year, the following years? And I talked to Director Hansen, I believe it was on Thursday, after I met with you and Director Hansen on Wednesday, and he said it would be about a week before that report would be done. I would feel a lot more comfortable voting on this on April 7th after Director Hansen would have a chance to do this report, and perhaps Alderperson Clayunas could call a committee of the whole meeting between now and then, and I think we could make a much more intelligent decision based on exactly what you're asking us to do, get all the numbers, lay it all on the table. And I'm not supporting it tonight based on the information I have. And with all due respect to Alderman Gisha, the profit of the ambulance business is very, very much up in the air, depending on whether you do it on a cash accounting basis or an accrual basis. And I know we've been fighting that email battle with an individual who has a lot more experience than I do in finances with Director Hansen. And I think we also have to come to some type of an agreement of how the accounting for the ambulance service is going to be done as we go forward. because there's a lot of angst in the community about the numbers that we're getting, and I think there's some angst on this council about the numbers we're getting. So I'm not going to support it tonight, and I look forward to Director Hansen's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Boren. Alderman Rindfleisch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question that I have most concern about today, and the reason why last week or 2 weeks ago I asked that they be sent back to Public Protection and Safety, is station number 5. And the statement we just heard is the council needs to look at the best, providing the best public service with the funds available. And there's been discussions of why station number 5, why was it created so many years ago. Those are all decisions made way before my time. However, we heard at PP&S statement that if number 5 is the station that is to be closed, the entire city south of the river will be protected by 4 firefighters at all times. Correct me if I'm wrong, that means that there's 12 firefighters on duty north of the river. Is that correct? With 4 each station at a time?
As a minor correction, there'll be 5 at Station 2 on the south side.
5. Yeah. Okay, one more. So we'll have 5 on the south, and that's just not my district. That's all the taxpayers on the south side of town. There's multiple districts down there. So my question going forward is not on hiring the 4 firefighters. Fiscally, I think we can't afford to go into overtime. We did that 2 years ago when there was no money to overtime, but somehow it magically appeared. There is no place where it can magically appear anymore to pay overtime. I believe it was the police department at that time. It doesn't exist, so we have to do something to better budget what we need, and so I will support the 3+1, the 4 today. My question is, though, the fire station number 5, is that truly the best way of protecting the entire south side of the city by having the 5, thank you for the correction, firefighters versus the 3 stations that will be north of the river as well? And when the distance we look at from would be the 1200 block or so of 14th Street, where the river crosses north 14th Street, all the way out 14th and down to Business Drive to the edge of town, that's got to be almost 4 miles, would be my guess. And I think that having 5 to cover that distance, 4 miles by 2 miles wide, that's 8 square miles that we have that I think is protected by 5. I think that's far too little. So I would say we'll today support the hiring of the 4, but I can't support the closing of station number 5. It just doesn't make any sense to me to protect that many of our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rindfleisch. Alderman Hanna.
Yes, I just want to know, do we need to satisfy Alderperson Rindfleisch, do we need to amend the substitute resolution? And can that be amended on the floor tonight? Okay, thank you.
Question answered already? Yeah. Very good.
What is the answer to that question?
Yes.
Yes. The question was a nod of
I'm
approval
sorry.
by
Yes.
our city clerk.
Could you expand on that a bit?
Well, in order, you've got to do something because the front document, the report of committee says to leave it open. You've got 2 issues that you're talking about, hiring 4, closing or leaving open the station. The recommendation from PP&S says one thing, the substitute resolution attached says to close the station and hire 4. So in order to get to where Alderman Rindfleisch is talking about, someone would have to amend the substitute resolution. If you don't, you've got to do, otherwise you're going to pass the substitute resolution as it stands, which is hire 4, close number 5.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So much length for your explanation there.
Thank you. Sorry.
Alderman Heidemann. Vice
Thank you,
President
Mayor.
Heidemann.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I will make that motion to amend the substitute resolution to include the leaving of station number 5 open.
Okay, so we'll be deleting be it further resolved, the second be it further resolved.
Right.
The whole paragraph. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second on amending the resolution. This will be the only point of discussion at this point, is amending the resolution that will state that station number 5, that there will be 4 firefighters hired and station number 5 will remain open. Under discussion on that point. On that point only, Alderman Rindfleisch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the be it further resolved changed, if this amendment passes, I do need to point out, though, that in the 4th whereas clause, the funding for the positions comes from closing of the station of $15,739, which is recurring.
Yes.
So that would also have to be amended, either one, since we don't have the FIF or the FIFE form, to show where that extra $15,000 would have to come from, because otherwise we're giving directions to the fire chief, which don't make any sense.
Your Honor, if I may, if the discussion is to move the closing of a station to a different station, that savings is the same no matter which station it is.
Okay. But as the amendment is proposed right now, we would have a hole within the budget based on that amendment. So for further discussion, for the committee's well-being, I think it needs to be looked at before we really vote on that amendment.
Okay. If we can have President Gisha expound upon that, please.
Yeah, it might not be too much help, but maybe a couple of questions might help me get there. Is beginning in April, if we do nothing, we've got 25 grand a month, I believe, of overtime. Correct?
That kicks in roughly the middle of May.
Middle of May,
It's a
okay.
little bit less than that per week between now and then.
In overtime budgeted currently, looking at the scenario going through the middle of May from today, with 4 additional bodies, can there be an overtime savings of $15,739?
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm trying to project forward to find the money, okay? And Director Hansen would be much better at this than I. In projecting forward with the 4, 3 plus the hiree. By the way, you're not getting 4 new firemen. I think people ought to really be clear on this.
I have 8 retirees.
We got 8, right.
Looking to get
We're
half.
cutting in half the amount that we got, just twice going out, half coming back. So I think that might be lost to the public too. But my point is, can we squeeze another $15,000 with these 4 people? $15,739 worth of overtime, because we won't have to expend that overtime that's somewhat expected, but it wasn't budgeted. I guess I'm looking to find the money in the overtime budget that these people would help you being able to be manned at a sufficient enough level that you may be able to back off some of your current overtime plans.
I would say for next year, there's a better chance of that, but because of the fact the rescue pumper doesn't arrive until October, November, I have some staffing issues. And the question you're asking me is then keeping all 5 stations open?
I'm putting that out as I think that's the concept being discussed here, and I'm trying to kind of match up the dollars to the concept being discussed. Maybe Terry, beyond that, I'm out of ideas.
There is an overtime savings, but it's very difficult for me to project exactly what that is, because the overtime is based on sick leave and workers' comp, basically.
Right.
That's the only time that I need to utilize overtime.
I know it's kind of Monday morning quarterbacking, but traditionally the fire department as well as other departments have asked for carryover funds from the year before. This year the fire department didn't ask for that. Were there carryover monies from the year before?
I believe there were some monies left, but again, I was not totally involved in the total budget. We were told that there were no more carryovers allowed in 2010. So we did not carry money over. There was money left.
You know, it is not a significant amount of money. And if those monies can be looked at as overtime savings in 2011 because of the new pumper and at least having some staff there to do the work, I think there's probably some justification there. But Director Hansen may be better if he's listened in on this. Maybe he's got something in his mind. Sorry, Terry.
When the rescue pumper does arrive, 2011 does become easier on overtime.
Yeah. Thank you, President Gisha. Alderman Bauch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarifying question, Chief, because I've been traveling a lot and I just want to make sure I understand all the scenarios. Was one of the scenarios, don't hire the 4, close Station 5 and get the rescue pumper, or was that not a legitimate scenario?
That was not a scenario that I brought forward, because we have, that scenario causes the most amount of overtime for me.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks. And then I would just, my colleagues, Alderman Boren made a very interesting point that we could discuss this for 2 more weeks and still meet the chief's deadline for needing to close the station or not. So I would encourage us, if we need some more time to get some numbers and some facts, that's an option that Alderman Boren has brought up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Bauch. We have Alderman Bowers.
Thank you. 2 questions. Alderman Bourne proposed that we bring this before the committee of the whole or discuss it further. I don't know, that wasn't made into a motion though, was it, Alderman Bourne? I know we have one on the floor now, so I don't want to get the confusion.
Yeah, the motion on the floor right now is to amend to keep Station 5 open. That's the motion right now on the floor.
Okay, and my next question is, it's just one of a couple of weeks ago, Alderman Wangerman more or less, I don't want to say chastised, but asked you, you know, are you able to pontificate when you're the mayor up there sitting around and give your opinion? I don't know.
Yes, I am.
You are?
According to our city attorney, McLean, I don't know if I'm pontificating. I think I'm participating in the discussion. But yes, I think I'm allowed to open my mouth.
Wouldn't you have to come down to the council floor to do that, or can you still sit up there?
Point of order, the discussion is on
The amendment.
to the resolution, to the substitute.
You know, in order to run a meeting, I do have to keep some order and have some input.
Right.
So my answer is yes.
Your Honor.
I'll be in touch with the city attorney.
I'm sure you will.
If I may, on the subject of delaying this decision, you may delay this decision, but in order for me to keep operating at the level I'm operating right now, every 2 weeks you delay that decision, the first 2 weeks is going to be $5,000 in overtime, the second 2 weeks may be $6,000, the third may be $7,000, because we're coming into vacation times, and I don't have the people to keep those stations open without calling in overtime. It takes us, at the quickest we can get people in is roughly 6 weeks from the time we place the call to a new hire. We have to do a psychological testing on them. They have to pass a physical. They have to give their employer 2 weeks' notice, and we have to run them through our training process, which at the very quickest is 3 weeks. We'd rather do it 4 weeks before we can put them on a piece of fire apparatus. So if you count backwards, we're into the middle of May if I call tomorrow morning when I have one of those new firefighters actually working for the city.
Thank you, Chief. Alderman Bourne?
Just a clarification, Madam City Clerk. If this amendment that's on the floor right now, if we vote, I don't want to close any fire stations either, and that eventually, I don't want to close any fire stations, but I'm not prepared to vote on this tonight. But on this amendment that's on the floor right now, if I would vote for that amendment to keep all that fire station open on the south side, we're just voting on the amendment to keep the station open. We're not voting right now on the entire package to do the hires, or are we?
The amendment is to delete that paragraph, and the paragraph says to close Station 5 located at South 18th Street and make all the appropriate personnel and service changes necessary to close the station. You're eliminating that. That's what the amendment does to this substitute resolution.
Okay.
Then after that, you're going to be voting on whatever it is that you have to vote on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bourne. Alderperson Clayunas?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a question about overtime. So what would be the most overtime we'd pay a month during vacation time? Would you estimate, Chief?
The most that we would, or the most that I'm projecting?
Well, whatever you have a number for, I guess.
Well, if nobody is hired and you ask us to keep operating at the same level we are now, roughly $1,400 a day.
A day. Okay, and that's for how many months or weeks or?
That's every day.
Through to the end of the year?
That's every day from guaranteed June through middle of September.
Okay, so that's the summertime.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I guess overtime is always seen as kind of an evil, but it doesn't, you don't have another health insurance benefit or anything else with overtime. You don't have another pension with overtime. When it's over, it's over. And then you go back to a staff which is more trim. So, this staff is trim at overtime too, but the money is out, and then it's not recurring year after year after year with increased benefits and salaries by hiring new people. That's my thought We're taking on an obligation, if we approve this, that will go on for years. A fireman can work, was it 30 years or 25?
30, 35.
In wages, and next year, that's going to be a big thing staring us in the face. And we'll have to raise taxes somewhere, I think, somewhere along the line. We can't find money, keep making it appear somewhere, and eat ourselves from the inside out by cannibalizing other departments and eating ourselves inside out, and to keep certain things going. So it's a tax issue too, I think, coming up very soon.
Alderman Clayunas, I would agree with you if the overtime was a smaller amount, but because it's such a large amount,
Yeah.
I had to order in people last year, I don't know, 20 or 30 times because I was short. It's such a large amount of days this year, I can't function that way. I'd be ordering people in almost every day. We'll burn out our people out. It's not fair for me to say to somebody who's planning on going home in the morning that you can't go home today, you can't go home and take care of your daycare, whatever issues you had. I need you to stay here today, and I would be doing that day after day after day. That's not a good way of operating.
Without pontificating myself, I think it could be a scheduling nightmare. Alderperson Montemayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think that the most important thing this evening is to get on with voting to hire the new firefighters. We can put off discussing which station, any station, 1 or 2 weeks, but I think tonight we have to decide if we're going to hire the firefighters or not. If we say yes, Chief Herman can go ahead. If we say no, he's going to have to slash a lot of places. And of course, one of the ideas is to get rid of the ambulance. Well, not only will we be closing fire stations, we'll be slashing the inspection and public works again.
Okay, so the motion on the floor at the moment is to amend the substitute resolution that will hire 4 firefighter paramedics and keep Station 5 open.
No.
No?
Just the last part. What we're doing to amend is...
Okay, the amendment is just to keep Station 5 open. That is the amendment. To the substitute resolution is to keep Station 5 open.
Not exactly. The amendment is to take out that paragraph, be it further resolved, that says the fire chief closed Station 5. It's just eliminated. That's all you're
Right.
voting on right now.
Right.
Doesn't say anything else.
Okay.
And it doesn't prevent, I think Alderman Hanna asked a question earlier in the evening. All we'll be doing by this voting on this amendment is to remove the be it further resolved mandating that he close Station 5.
Yes.
He still reserves the right in the future to close Station 5 if he sees fit. So the way, just to clarify, the way you worded it, it said it will keep Station 5 open. That's not necessarily true.
Basically,
we will no longer be mandating that it close, but he still has the authority to do that. Is that the way everyone understands it?
It basically will not mention Station 5.
Correct.
Period.
Okay, so just for everyone in the room and in TV land,
right.
If the financials tomorrow morning look like Station 5 should still be closed, he has the authority to do that, and we aren't telling him he can't. And that, I just want to clarify that, because we're not telling him he can't close it. We're just saying he doesn't have to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Buck. Good clarification. Okay, I see no more lights on the amendment, which is?
Okay. The amendment is to take out from the substitute resolution, be it further resolved that the fire chief closed Station number 5, on and on and on. Take that paragraph out, and I vote would be to take that paragraph out. Okay? Do it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Gisha. Aye. Hannah. Aye. Heidemann.
Aye.
Koth. No. Kittleson. Aye. Clayunas. Aye. Montemayor. Aye. Rindfleisch. Aye. Surek.
Aye.
Vu.
Aye.
Wangerman.
No.
Boren.
Aye.
Bauk. Aye. Bowers.
No.
And Decker.
Aye.
12 ayes, 3 noes
Motion carries.
on the amendment.
So, now on the amended substitute resolution, which is simply to hire 4 firefighter paramedics. This is now under discussion. Alderman Boren.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Based on what you told me before, Chief, with your management that you had back pre-ambulance days, I think you told me a few minutes ago that you would actually only need 3 new hires. Is that correct?
No, the way I understood that question was if we eliminated the ambulance, what would I need to get back to the level I was at prior to? To keep operating the way I am now, I need 4. Because I've had 1 additional retiree since that has occurred, or I have a letter that he's retiring on May 2nd. That's the 4th.
Okay, but actually then you would only need, with that 1 less management person then, you would only need 2 tonight and then 1 more when that person retires in May. If I understood correctly what you said before.
I think you misunderstood because in order for me to keep operating at the same level I am now, I need those 4. The rescue pumper, I'm down 6 right now, soon to be 7. The rescue pumper eliminated the need for 3, so I still need 4.
Okay. If I could just, a couple more things, Mayor.
Certainly.
Director Hansen stated at one of the Finance Committee meetings that these new positions are going to be funded through this year through some concessions by the union, and I thank them for that, and another person that you have on leave and a couple of other scenarios. And so those wages are going to be covered this year. However, Director Hansen expressed some concerns in finance about where we're going to come up with that money to fund these persons next year. And I believe, it might be $180,000 next year, and then with the acceleration of the salary and benefits, I believe within 3 or 4 years, those individuals will be up to about $250,000. And again, I think from what Alderman Bowers said, we've slashed a lot of departments, Public Works, and we've got some positions right now that we should be hiring. We desperately need another person in HR. The IT consultant that we had working recommended hiring a person there that possibly could generate some more revenue for the city and help to bring our IT system into this century. And I believe there might even be a possibility of rehiring some of these younger workers at Public Works. So I'm just having an awful difficult time supporting this tonight, and I will make a motion that we refer this matter to the Committee of the Whole within the next 2 weeks and take a final vote on April 7th.
Is that a motion?
Yes, it is.
We have a motion and a second to refer this to Committee of the Whole. Under discussion on referring this to Committee of the Whole, that is the motion on the floor.
Your Honor, if I may?
Yes.
Some of that expenses that you're talking about that go into next year are in the savings that I've proposed by reorganizing our department, by cutting the pay and cutting some of the positions. Obviously not all of the $180,000 that the 3 firefighters make up, but some of it is in reoccurring savings here. In addition, you just passed an amendment that said you want to keep all 5 stations open. If you do not pass this, within 3 to 4 weeks, I have to close the station.
Alderman Hanna.
I think our amendment was just to eliminate the language that specified you had to close Station 5.
Okay.
Yes, the amended document does not mention Station 5, period.
Thank you.
But it also does not address, if you don't hire, where am I getting the additional overtime money from to keep running?
That is very true. Alderman President Gisha.
Thank you. I know this is difficult for everyone, and I think there's probably 3 or 4 different positions in this room. But we're in the room for a reason, and that's to make decisions. This has been to committee, back to committee. We had a joint committee with Finance and Public Works, or Public Protection and Safety. It went back. back and forth. Eventually, there comes a time where you got to lead and you got to make a decision. And I think this is the time. It's financially the time, based on what the chief is saying. It is the time. That's what we're here for. And there just comes a time when the council has to act and do what it's supposed to do. And if that's voted down, then fine, vote it down. But we have to act. I personally support this, and actually I had kind of a thought on adding an amendment to this that may satisfy. It's being usurped by this motion to refer again. But given the opportunity, I would present an amendment that might help with a compromise in the room.
Okay, but we are still under the discussion of motion to refer, and we have Alderman Wangerman. Thank you, President Gisha. Alderman Wangerman?
My light was pre the motion.
Oh, it was. Okay.
So I'll speak to the main.
We'll catch you after the motion then.
The main document.
Okay, on the motion only, the motion to refer, under discussion. Any further discussion? Alderman Baum.
How can we move forward with a teaser like that from our president? How can we move forward with an appropriate vote on Alderman Bourne's motion to refer unless we know what the content of President Gisha's great idea is?
We'll have the opportunity to refer it.
Oh, I thought
Hence
perhaps
it's
if
called
you
a
floated
teaser.
it tonight, we might not refer.
That's not a motion on the floor at the moment.
Motion on the floor is to refer. Alderman Bourne? Thank you, Alderman Baum.
I really don't see how people can vote on this tonight without having a true picture, a financial impact statement from our finance director of what the ramifications are going to be, not only for the fire department, but are we going to, if we possibly decide to get out of the ambulance business, what are going to be the ramifications of that? We have to look at ramifications not only of the fire department, but every department in the city. And that's the kind of a report that I want from Director Hansen at a committee of the whole meeting within the next week or 10 days. And as I said, I may end up supporting this, but I'm not going to support it tonight until I have more financial information on the impact of the budget for the next 2 or 3 years going out. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bourne. On the motion to refer, any further discussion? If there is none, roll call, please, on motion to refer. An aye vote would be to refer this to the committee of the whole.
Hannah? No. Excuse me? No. Heidemann? Yeah. That's a yes.
That was a yeah.
Koth? No. Kittleson? No. Klein-Eunice?
Yes.
Montemayor?
No.
Rindfleisch?
No.
Zurich?
No.
Vu?
Yes.
Wangerman?
Aye.
Boren?
Aye.
Bauk?
Aye.
Bowers?
Yes.
Decker?
No.
That was a no?
No.
Thank you. And Gisha?
No.
7 ayes, 8 noes.
7 ayes, 8 noes. So it does not go to the committee of the whole. Under discussion with the teaser, President Gisha.
Well, it's not that exciting. It's hard to live up to the hype sometimes with these things. But I would like to offer an amendment to the previously amended substitute resolution. And that would be it further resolved that any station closing must come before the council for appropriate approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second that any station closing would be the decision of the council.
Correct. Your Honor, that the thought being that there's no guarantee the station can't be closed. There's some that don't want it to be closed, some that want to have a say-so in being closed. This would at least move us forward in hiring enough manpower so we're not spending $25,000 a month. That's a financial figure, no matter where you refer this to, that won't change. So at least we can move forward with some staffing levels that are lower than we've historically ever had, but will at least then allow the council a say in the final decision.
Thank you, President Gisha. We have a motion and a second. Now this discussion is on the amendment that any fire station that would happen to be closed would be at the discretion or the ultimate approval of the Common Council. Alderman Bowers.
Thank you. I guess my question is, we approved the 4 firemen tonight, and of course, the new council will come in next month, and the new council votes to close the firehouse, which would probably indicate you'd have to lay somebody off?
No.
No? You would just reassign them? So we would have the same amount of firemen, but one less firehouse?
It would be substantial savings in overtime, if that was the decision made at that point.
All right.
Vice President Heidemann.
Thank you, Mayor. You kind of answered my question before, Chief, with the passing of this resolution and the hiring of the 4 people, because it would be 2 to 3 weeks before you'd close station number 5, if we would not pass the amended resolution?
Correct.
Okay.
Starting around April 19th, I'm starting to see vacation days, and rather than pay overtime, if that was the intent of the council to close a station, that would be the time to do it.
Okay, thank you.
We have to remember also, without pontificating, that it takes time to train people. You don't just hire them and they go to work the next day. Any further discussion? Alderman Bourne.
Just a clarification by Madam City Clerk on what we're going to be voting on now. We're going to be voting on having the council give approval on if we close a fire station. This is an amendment that we're voting on, but we're still not voting on whether we hire the 4. Is that correct?
Right, the motion was that any station closing must come before the council for approval. That's all you're voting on.
All right, thank you.
Okay, on that amendment, any further discussion? Alderman Bowers.
How many votes do you need for passage?
I believe half. On the amendment?
On just the amendment?
Yeah.
We're not
This is
doing the
just on
whole
the amendment.
document. We're just
Just
doing
on the
this-
amendment?
Yeah, just normal, simple
It's on the
majority.
amendment, simple majority. On the amendment only, the amendment being that any closing of a fire station would come before the Common Council for approval.
Right.
Any further discussion? If there is none, roll call, please, on the amendment.
Heidemann. Aye. Koth. No. Kittleson. Aye. Clayunas. No. Montemayor. No. Rindfleisch. Aye. Surrick. Aye. Vu. Aye. Wangerman. No. Boren. Aye. Bauk. No. Bowers. No. Decker. Aye. Sorry, Jeremy. Gisha. Aye. And Hannah. No. 8 ayes, 7 noes.
Motion carries. Okay, so here we are. 8 ayes, the motion?
8 ayes.
8 ayes, 7
noes.
noes. That's
Let me
8
count it again.
Ayes mean the
8
motion.
ayes, 7 noes.
Okay, the motion does carry. That means that any closing of a firehouse in the future, according to this amended document, will come before the Common Council. Now, back to the discussion of the quadruple amended resolution and the hiring of the 4 firefighters. Under discussion, Alderperson Montemayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After all this discussion, the weeks of discussion, the months of arguing, tonight I call the question.
Have a motion to call the question. Have a motion and a second to call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Let's take a roll call on calling the question, please.
Okay. Whoa, lights are going. Heidemann. No. Koth. Aye. Kittleson. No. Clayunas. No. Montemayor. Aye. Rindfleisch. Aye. Surrick. Aye. Vu. Aye. Wangerman. No. Boren. No. Bauk. No. Bowers. No. Decker. Aye. Thank you. Gisha. Aye. And Hannah. 8 to 7. 8 to 7, 8 ayes, 7 noes.
The question is called.
Who seconded that, by the way? Alderman Gisha?
Alderman Gisha, President Gisha. So there's no further discussion.
Could we just hold on a second?
Yes.
Thank you.
We're just checking the rule book here.
My last.
Set?
Yeah.
Calling the question requires a 2/3 majority vote. So the question is still open. Okay, on the original amended resolution, the question is open. The chief would like to speak for a moment.
If I may, Your Honor, as fire chief, I am not advocating closing any fire station. I believe Station 5 was put there in the interest of public safety. Yes, it does not have as many fire calls as the other stations, but I think if you ask Marge Zagali, it's pretty important that that station's there because her husband's walking around today, most likely because that station responded to her call. I do realize that in tough times, tough decisions have to be made. This is one of them. But you have to give us at least the minimum resources that we need to do the things that we do. And it's not just fight fires, it's rescues, it's car accidents, industrial rescues, medical emergencies, water and sewage backups. When they don't know who else to call, they call the fire department. We're pumping basements, we're pumping yards. We do protect the city's liability in a lot of other areas other than fire and medical emergencies. Hazmat, kids, elderly people locked in their apartments, that's what we do. You have to give us the resources to do that. You obviously cannot staff us for the landmark fire, but you got to give us a half a chance to be able to put that out. I don't know how many people realize how close that fire was to jump in 6th Street. We didn't have any more hoses. We didn't have any more men. We had guys inside those buildings across the street there with buckets of water dousing curtains that were exploding in flames because it was so hot. You have to give us the resources. Had that jumped 6th Street, I don't know where it would have went. You need to give us at least the minimum resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Alderperson Kittleson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just, public protection and safety is just number one, and it goes against everything in me, too, to close a fire station. However, it is coming down to the money issue, and that's what we're talking about here. But I just wanted to ask the question about, a while back, I think this council voted as far as some writing a grant, or is there any grant money that have you heard anything about that? Is there anything that would help the money situation as far as that grant?
We did write that grant. Unfortunately, so did every other fire department in the United States, more than likely. I would not stand here and wait for that grant to come in. It's very unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderperson Kittleson. Alderman Bourne.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Just to go over a scenario again, Chief. If the ambulance went away, hypothetically, and you were to reassign those 4 paramedics, I would imagine one of those now firemen would be over at station number 5, which would give us 3 over there, which means that if fire station number 5 then had to respond to a fire, you got 3 on there, plus you'd be getting somebody probably from Ashland or downtown. You then have improved your situation in that you're only going to need 2 to respond to do an extrication. Is that correct?
That actually, in that scenario, reduces our number of people on the south side because you're forgetting there's 2 people on the ambulance at the 18th and Meade station.
How many people do you have there? You have 5 there now, right?
5.
Okay, so then if you didn't have the ambulance, you would have at least 1 more. You would have enough. You would have 5 then that would be just fire department, right?
Well, but you just said you're taking 1 from there and moving them to station 5. So I don't have that person at station 2 any longer.
But in any event, you're going to have another person at station 5 if we get out of the ambulance business.
But I will have some, on one of the other stations will be 1 short.
How would you distribute the 4? Where would they go? If we were out of the ambulance business, where would you put the 4 people?
I haven't looked at it in-depthly, but definitely 1 would go to station 5.
Okay.
Station 3, and more than likely downtown. That's only running with 4 here, would need an additional person.
Is 3 Ashland Avenue?
3 is 25th Street.
Okay. What would be your staffing on Ashland, in all likelihood?
It would be, depending on vacations, 4 or 5.
Okay, so then under that scenario, then, if you had a fire on the south side, you'd only have to respond with 2 units because you'd have enough people to do an extrication, where now, under this scenario, you have to have 3.
Alderman Bourne, were you at our committee the whole demonstration on how many people it takes to fight a typical residential fire and how many people we need on scene to pull somebody out of a house? It's more than 5.
Okay, that's minimum, right?
It's what we need. That's what we're operating at, is minimum.
Okay, but you need a minimum of 5 according to your standards to do an extrication. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bourne. Alderman Bauer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We want to be careful not to inflame the passion of the vote by wrapping ourselves in the flag of public safety. Marge Segali's husband's an important citizen. We love him. We want Landmark not to jump 6th Street. But what I think the signal that is being sent here, 3 years ago, the political will to have this kind of conversation about the fire department didn't exist in this city, which is why we have an ambulance service today. The political will, and God bless her, Dulcie Johnson has been on this for 3 years, and good for her to hold my feet to the fire on this, because I supported that ambulance. And you know what? The reason I did was because there was no political will to say maybe we ought to get rid of 8 or 11 firefighters. The political will didn't exist in the office of the mayor or in the council. These resources you're talking about, Chief, they're real expensive resources. And what I think you're seeing now is that the citizens of Sheboygan, for the first time in a long time, are saying, you know what? Gosh, that public safety stuff's really expensive. Did you see those contracts? Did you hear those negotiations? Did you see that stuff? And so what your team needs to realize is that for the first time in a long time, the political will almost exists in this room to have the conversation that didn't exist 3 years ago, which is, what about we cut 11 firemen and get out of the ambulance business? That political will almost exists. And so as we move forward as a city, all departments need to just be attuned to the economic climate that the taxpayers are living in. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Bauk. Any further discussion? Alderman Hanna?
Does this require a 2/3 vote?
The final document, because it's got a budget transfer attached.
Are we at the final document?
At this point, we're at a final document with...
Four amendments, or a couple few amendments.
So this is 2/3 vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
This would be the Attorney McLean.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a question for my clarification. Speaking of the budget alteration, I add up the numbers in the budget transfer portion of the document to be $82,173 that's being transferred. But yet, in the whereas, as far as the funding of the 3 positions, I total up $135,126. So it's sort of a finance question, I guess. And I think the chief alluded to this earlier, that he needed the savings from the closing of the station to help fund this. Does this work with this budget transfer of the $82,000? Does that accommodate hiring of the firefighters that you're lifting the freeze for?
If Terry Hansen's still awake in the back row there.
Thank you, Mayor. Can't fall asleep during this discussion. Yes, the reason why the amount in the budget transfer is so much less is there's a lot of netting going off in between the different internal accounts. And we have health insurance savings that's going from that over to the full-time salaries and whatnot. And then the savings from the absence of the employee is just a shuffling within, so you actually don't see it on the line items. It's just acknowledging that that's what's going to be done. The $15,000 and $739, that's as a result of the closing, that is not, that would have to be deducted out of here. So you are short the $15,739. I did a quick calculation. I think we determined the hiring in beginning of April. Is that correct?
I think we're into mid-April now.
But we figured in the budget.
In the budget was
Yeah.
April.
If this was done at the beginning of May, there'd be roughly about 15,000. So if it was at the beginning of May, you would have close to that same dollar amount, that 15,000. And just a reminder, I said it in the Finance Committee meeting as well too, that this is just this year's. A lot of these are one-time cost savings, and that you will be seeing a brunt of it in 2011. And I know Chief Herman is aware of that as well too, and has been keeping his eye on that and what he can do, so.
Thank you, Terry. Any further discussion? Alderman Bowers.
So what is the answer? Do we need 2/3?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Your Honor, if I may, if we can ask Director Hansen if he does have ballpark figures available that Alderman Bourne was requesting from him?
Terry, would you be willing to speak on that at this point?
I can give estimates.
Okay.
Now, working on the preliminary numbers, I don't have them finalized yet, but if we were to get out of the ambulance service and keep all 5 fire stations open and keep the staffing level as what's proposed, we would be looking at about a $500,000 to $581,000 deficit to deal with if the ambulance service was gone. And the reason for that...
excuse me, on that staffing, that is staffing as proposed in this resolution, or staffing as we're at right now?
Staffing as proposed in the resolution, and keeping all 5 fire stations open.
And getting out of
And then keeping the 4 that are currently in the ambulance fund and allocating those to the general fund. The reason is roughly about $250,000 for the staffing costs, and then we have a transfer. We're looking at $367,000 coming in 2010. However, looking at the 2009 numbers, we'll probably be closer to about $270 to $280 coming in. So if you add those two together, that's roughly the amount that we would have to come up with to fill the hole from the revenue loss in the ambulance service annually.
Thank you. You want to hang out up there for a minute? We have some questions. Alderman Wagaman?
Thank you. It's more in the nature of a comment, if I may. I've been around City Hall longer than anybody in this room. And as far back as 1965, I can recall the chief of police, telling the council that he was so very short on men, he was going to have to call in all kinds of guys to work all kinds of overtime. I've seen the same argument from the fire chief way back when. I've seen it come from Department of Public Works, and it's always the same argument. I happen to have a couple friends who are retired industrialists, and I was talking to them. And I'm sure you'd know them all if I gave you their names, but I'm not going to do that. And they're astonished that this council would even consider hiring people they don't know how they're going to pay. I asked one of them, I said, when you were in industry, would you have considered hiring employees you didn't know where the paycheck was coming from? And they just laughed. They said, if I did, the board of directors would probably throw me right through the window. And I'm just wondering, how can we do this? How can we hire people if we don't know how to pay them? And I have to say, and I addressed this comment to the chief, I somewhat angry about being bludgeoned into this because of the fact that we're endangering public safety. I worked in public safety protection for almost 30 years. And to make this insinuation that we don't have the public safety in mind, you know, I heard the same argument from the chief of police. The city was going to go to rack and ruin. Gangs were going to take over the streets. Fire chiefs tell us babies are going to burn in their beds, and none of these things came to pass. And then I saw police chiefs adding overtime all over the place to enforce their point. And I'm not saying that's what the fire chief is doing. But is this overtime absolutely necessary? Is there some way around it? I don't know. The money just isn't there. And as Alderman Bauk pointed out, you know, we got 50-some thousand people in the city we have to answer to. And I think it's high time we start answering to them because there's some pretty strong feeling out there about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Wangerman. Alderman Boren?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Director Hansen, are you telling me that these three new hires are not going to be going under the ambulance balance sheet? They're going to be general fund funded? I mean, if we have enough money under the supposed profits of the ambulance business to pay for these three people, why aren't they going on the ambulance side? You told us in finance a month ago that they were going to, and now they're not going to. I mean, this is a kind of fuzzy math that is the reason I'm not voting for this tonight. It's because I can't get any accurate numbers. One week it's one thing, the next week it's the next thing. And it's very disturbing.
Okay, in response to the three being hired, right now, the way, and this is the way it is, and you may think it's fuzzy math or whatever, but what happened in the 2010 budget, if we would have cut the positions out that retired, the 7 positions that retired in the fire department, technically, 4 of those positions would be out of the ambulance service, technically. That is how it's been handled. That's how everybody's been allocated in the account in the past. However, submitting a 2010 budget with no personnel costs in the ambulance fund would have opened the door for ludicrous actions. So the thought was to keep those people in the ambulance fund and to keep the 4 in there because that was determined marginal at one time. Now to hire the 3 additional was to replace 3 of the 7 that came out of the general fund. Now the big question is, as far as what you want in the general fund, is what level of fire protection you want in the general fund. Once that is determined, then you can put whatever you want in the ambulance fund. I do not care what it is. The only word of caution that I strongly advise is that whatever you put in the ambulance fund, if it's determined you want to get rid of it, you better be prepared to cut it. Because if we have to put that back in the general fund, we will lose expenditure restraint aid. So that is why it's in the general fund, is to protect us from losing our expenditure restraint aid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Alderman Paul.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Just a quick question, Terry. I don't know if you've run this scenario or not, but maybe you did. What if we were to hire nobody, close Station 5, and close the ambulance? Have you run that scenario?
I did, and
And I'm okay with the ballpark. I'm just looking to compare that to the scenario you just said where we hire 4, don't close the station, and don't close the ambulance.
I think we are looking at about a shortfall of approximately 150,000.
Okay.
Possibly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bauk. Alderman Bowers?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. I think we've been over this before, Chief, but anyway, I just want to see if we can get the percentages correct. As I recall, you were allocating roughly 25 to 30% of the fireman's time to the ambulance service. Is that correct?
I've never allocated any of the firefighters' time. That was a study that came out of Fond du Lac. That's the way that they allocate their time. We don't allocate our time that way.
Well, anyway, that's what's been shown to us, because as I recall, there's 2,500 emergency call runs and something like 1,200 fire runs. So the allocation of the firefighters, which / are also EMTs, I think, right, all of them?
Correct.
Okay. So wouldn't it be, if you're running 2,700 runs, that you would allocate more money to the EMTs than you would to the fire?
I didn't set up the way the accounting was set up to begin with. It was set up as the last 4 hires are allocated to the ambulance fund, and that's still the way it is.
So you had nothing to do with it. I understand you took over. So that was the accounting procedure when you were hired by previous administrations, right? The allocation, or you have nothing to do with that?
That was what was presented in the business proposal that the council voted on. That has been a practice since the day one of the ambulance service beginning.
Actually, we had nothing to do with it. That was your proposal, the fire department's proposal to us, or this council 2 years ago, right?
If I may, Alderman Bowers, that was approved by the Common Council when the ambulance was approved by the Common Council some 2+ years ago.
So the fire department cannot change that, or does that have to be an act of the council?
It could be, it can be accounted any way the council would like it.
I might add that I've been contacted by a CPA firm that they would want to take a look at the books, and I said, well, you know, the books have been looked at, but I think it's the allocation of time here. And they indicated that they would be willing to do an audit, so that's just for information that might be down the road, because there are serious concerns on my part, allocation of funds between the ambulance and the fire department.
Alderman Boren.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan, for your patience and calling on me again. The scenario that Alderman Bauk just gave, Director Hansen, you said that the whole would be how much? 100 or what was it? 150,000?
Roughly about 150 if my memory serves me right.
For 2011.
Correct.
Okay. The resolution that came in last week from Alderperson Clayunas on the Green Initiative, Alderman Bauk, you weren't here, but if we would save on that Green Initiative, if we would save 10% in our energy consumption, Alderperson Clayunas estimates that we could save 10%, which would be over $200,000. Now, let's say conservatively, the first year we only save $100,000, and the resolution that Alderman Gisha and I brought in about possibly outsourcing some cleaning services, the savings there could well fill that hole without any trouble at all. Just being conservative on what we're going to save on energy, plus the fact if we end up outsourcing cleaning services. So under Alderman Bauk's scenario, balanced budget. Thank you.
It's a great idea, Alderman Boren. Unfortunately, we can't allocate hypothetical money at this point.
I'm being very conservative, I said.
Right, but I mean, that would be like saying we're going to get some new industry in town and grow our tax base by X amount, so therefore we can spend it. And you can't allocate hypothetical savings. President Gisha.
Terry, sorry to put you on the spot, but what the heck? What is the best? Everybody seems to be concerned about finance. And I agree with Alderperson Wangaman. greatly on a lot of the financial points he mentioned, but you gave some estimates of almost a $600,000 hole if we get rid of the ambulance. That's that fake money that doesn't exist that people like to talk about with the ambulance service. So that's real money. What is the best financial decision to make in hirings and closings? What's the best scenario out of all of them you've looked at from a straight finance situation? That's putting you on the spot, isn't it, Terry?
That's putting me on the spot with a big, bright light. From a financial perspective, you would want to keep, there's multiple ways to do this, but you always want to try to contain your costs so they have the least amount of exponential growth. So what you need to look at is doing the balancing between the policy, you love that one, the policy of what level you want to fund your fire protection at. I think once you determine where you fund your fire protection at, then the ambulance question will end up solving itself once you determine the appropriate level of fire service. If you want to keep a high level of fire service, in my opinion, the ambulance utilizes people who are not busy at that time, that you can utilize them for the ambulance service. If you run with a leaner fire department, that they do not have the time to do that, then you do not run the ambulance, but you do save the costs on the other end. So it's basically, if you keep a high level, you utilize idle resources. If you do not keep a high level, then you will not have time to do it.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Give me a lot to think about.
Thank you, President Gisha. Alderman Rindfleisch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don't go too far. It's a very similar question to what we had just had heard. But we've heard the two scenarios. Get out of the ambulance service, keep all stations open, hire the 4, 500 to 581,000 ballpark deficit. We heard a second scenario. Close one station, get out of the ambulance service, do not hire the 4, like a $150,000 deficit. What we really haven't heard the proposal as is to stay in the ambulance service with the 4 new hires and at this point at least, and the 5 stations open. What is your ballpark again? Are we at least breaking even at that point in time? Or what's your opinion?
If we, was it leaving the all fire stations open? That was a...
Since that's the resolution in front, yes.
Okay. We'd probably be looking at, in 2011, about a $200,000 deficit. And to clarify on the getting rid of the ambulance service, that would be eliminating the 4 firefighter paramedics that are currently assigned to that. So that's where we get down to the 150, just for clarification. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Rindfleisch. I see no further lights up here. Therefore, I guess we are at a vote.
Not quite yet. I just have a question.
Right. I figured you would.
We still have the, in the fourth whereas, as Alderman Rindfleisch pointed out, we still have savings from the closing of a station of $15,739. Now, we've taken the paragraph out, so how do you want to reconcile the fact that that's still in there? Or do you?
President Gisha?
I think we should. I think that was pointed out by the city attorney. I would probably make a motion to actually just remove that entire section. Frankly, that entire whereas. Where is the funding? That was for informational purposes only, for the most part. Or
So you're talking just take the whole paragraph out?
I don't know why we wouldn't.
The one above it, too, would have to go.
Which one above it, please?
Right above, closing a fire station would allow the chief to better staff.
I'm talking about the 1, 2, 3, fourth whereas gone.
Right, and then the one right above that.
The third whereas would allow the fire chief to better staff remaining fire. Why would that have to go? Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Yes, removing then whereas number 3 and number 4, if we're at least going to vote on a clean document up or down, I think that's a motion that I would make.
2, 3.
I'm not sure this can be a clean document anymore.
Okay, so all we're discussing here right now is removing the third and fourth, whereas the third says, beginning with whereas closing a fire station, the fourth whereas funding of the 3 positions. Just on eliminating those because they no longer fit the document with, because this is not closing a fire station. Any discussion under that? Terry? I thought we'd get away with this.
That still does not address the shortfall of the $15,739. It just
Cleans up the language.
doesn't state it in the resolution, but the costs are still the costs.
Right.
So,
It's still going to require a 2/3 vote.
and as far as addressing the 15,000, I don't know if waiting until May is an acceptable hire date or not for the fire department, but that is one potential, that if it was May, there would be enough savings in order to do that, so. But I don't know how the overtime impacts in May, or in April.
Because then I can amend my amendment if that's the case.
President Gishey, you had?
Yeah, if Chief, if you could answer that question, if you could wait till May on the hires, I can then amend my amendment to address that 15,000 in the way that Director Hansen noted.
I would say that it would be real close to that 15,000 if we can put them through an accelerated program, depending on the experience level of the top applicants, and I haven't looked at it recently. We may be able to get them in 2 weeks and not incur that additional overtime that would eat that amount up. So yes, I think we could make up that 15,000.
President Gishey, you'd like to?
Thank you. I don't believe there was a second on my amendment, so.
Yeah, there was, but that's okay.
Would you mind withdrawing your second? I would like to, and I'll withdraw my amendment, to still remove the third whereas, because it talks about a fire station, and change the very last sentence of the very next paragraph, that one has all the numbers in it, that savings, additional savings from delayed hiring to be $15,739. Additional savings from delayed hiring to be $15,739.
So you're keeping the entire paragraph, but the
Except for
the last sentence will be,
And that way we at least have
and
an accurate
additional savings from
delayed hiring.
delayed hiring instead of the closing of a station, 15,739, and not recurring.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on that, on the amendment is under discussion. Alderperson Bowden.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Then, as a financial question, that scenario that Terry was talking about, where we don't hire anyone, we close Station 5, we get out of the ambulance business, we've already got the pumper, and we let the 4 paramedics go, and that's a negative 150-ish. Can you protect the city with that manning? Does that allow you to man the stations the way you need to? You're out of the ambulance business, and you've not hired 4 more, and you have let 4 paramedics go. Does that allow you to cover the city with?
We would be at very minimum manning in 4 stations at that point.
But you could do it?
Not to the level that we are now, and I would say not as safely as we are now, and you would also have to get us out of the first responding business.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Alderman Bowers.
Okay, we've had amendments, we've had the original. I have no idea what we're voting on, because there's been amendments and whereas and do this and do that and 15, it seems like anytime we get close to a vote, oh, we're going to amend it, and we throw in 15,000, we call in Terry Hansen and ask him for what if. Can we just vote and know what we're voting on?
Okay, to answer your question on what we're voting on, our city clerk, Sue Richards, would love to do that for you.
Gee, Tom, thanks a lot. But I do have a question on the Alderman Gisha, on when you said delayed hiring of, to be 15,739, should it say recurring? That's
No.
not recurring,
The
right?
recurring would
Take
be-
recurring out. Okay. You really want me, okay.
Okay.
Can you have your document in front of you so we can kind of go through it, please? Thank you.
2450?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, 2450.
Well, it's actually, if you 1923.
1923.
The resolution that's attached to that.
Oh, here.
There we go. All right. Is everybody ready? Have at it, Sue.
Okay. Let's see. Just give me a minute. I've got to go through everything you did. Okay, first of all, you have, pardon me?
No, we haven't voted on the final amendment.
Right, let's do that first.
Okay. On the
Oh, sure.
On the final amendment regarding the whereases, which is the third whereas is wiped out. The third whereas being whereas closing a fire station. That paragraph is gone. And the next paragraph, whereas the funding of the 3 positions would come from the negotiations, that stays. The 6-month disciplinary action of an employee, that stays. And the last line, and employee that.
Cuth. Kittleson. Clayunas. Montemayor. Rindfleisch. Surrick. Vu. Wangerman. Boren. Bauk. Bowers. Decker. Gisha. Hannah. And Heidemann. 12 ayes, 3 noes.
The motion carries on the amendment. So now, on the final amended document, and this requires a 2/3 vote. Do we all know what the final amended document is, Sue?
No, you probably don't. Okay. There's a motion on the floor to pass the substitute resolution as amended. The amendments are to delete, the first one is to delete the be it further resolved, which is the second one down on the page, where it starts that the fire chief closed Station 5. That's the first one. Then to add a be it further resolved, and that one is that any station closing must come before the council for approval. Okay? And then to take out the third whereas, closing a fire station would allow the fire chief to better staff. Take that whole paragraph out. And the last one would be in the next whereas, to take that last part of it where it says position, take position out and say additional savings from the delayed hiring to be $15,739. There's 3 amendments, so it'll be a substitute resolution as amended 3 times.
Is that clear to everybody?
Does everybody get it? Do you want me to go with? Right, it requires 11 votes of aye, 2/3.
2/3 vote to pass.
On the full council.
Yes. Okay. Roll call, please. Thank you, Chief.
Hold on. Okay. Kittleson.
Aye.
Clayunas.
Aye.
Montemayor. Rindfleisch. Surrick. Vu. Wangerman. Boren. Bauk. Bowers. Decker. Gisha. Oops, that's why I have a lot of pencils. Gisha was aye. Hannah. Heidemann. Koth. 9 ayes, 6 noes, motion fails.
Motion fails. Moving on, ordinances introduced 10. 24-51 lies over. 24-52 to be referred to salaries and grievances. Matters laid over 10. 23-39, resolution number 192-09-10 by Alderpersons Gisha, Clayunas, Boren, Heidemann, and Montemayor, rescinding 2009 real estate taxes for assessments on various properties. President Gisha.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that the resolution be put upon its passage.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to put the resolution upon its passage. Under discussion.
Your Honor, if I may, a question was raised for the addresses, which was supplied to everyone, I believe.
Yes.
So that was suggestion was made at the last council meeting.
And everybody has those addresses. Thank you, President Gisha. Any further discussion? If there is none, roll call, please.
Clayunas. Montemayor. Rindfleisch. Surrick. Vu. Wongman. Boren. Bauk. Bowers. Decker. Gisha. Hannah. Heidemann. Koth. And Kittleson. 14 ayes, 1 abstention.
Motion carries. Other matters authorized by law. Attorney McLean.
Thank you, Your Honor. 2453 is an RO by the city clerk submitting a communication from Bernard Markovich, Library Board President, stating that they appreciate the recent actions taken by the council and its finance committee to amend the 2010 budget in order to meet the maintenance of effort funding requirement for 2010.
It lies over.
2454 is an RO by the city clerk submitting a communication from Andres Arujo of Partners for Community Development, stating that they have established the Sheboygan Volunteer Center and asking if the city could use any volunteers to perform work within the city, park and road cleanup, painting, garbage pickup, etc.
That will be referred to PP&S and Public Works.
2455 is an RO by the city clerk submitting a notice of circumstances of claim in the matter of City of Sheboygan Department of Public Works, Kevin Hilbelink.
That will go to Risk Management.
Here's another one.
56.
Oh, I didn't.
You can just read that one.
There it is. Okay. 2456 is an RO by the city clerk submitting a various license applications for the period ending June 30, 2010 and June 30, 2011.
That will go to Law and Licensing.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.